Welcome to Indie Music Explorer. I'm Dan.
I'm Jack.
And we're the Barton Brothers. We are Denver-based songwriters and performers committed to uncovering the tricks and tactics that independent artists are using to succeed in the new music business.
We sit down with creative people of all types to get their insights, and we'll share our own personal thoughts and experiences along the way.
So enjoy the episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Indie Music Explorer. I have the exclusive pleasure of bringing you this week's episode because I had the pleasure of meeting with a friend last week who Dan does not know. So I did this episode by myself. Her name is Kim McClay. She is an extremely talented actress based out of New York City. She recently finished playing the role of Maggie in the national tour of A Chorus Line, the musical, something that you'll probably be familiar with even if you know nothing about musicals. This episode, I think you will find enjoyable, regardless of if you care about music theater, because we talk about things that relate to every musician, especially dealing with rejection, dealing with success, and for those of you living out east, how on earth do you survive living in New York City? So I hope you enjoy this episode, and once again, thanks for listening. Well, because I know we'll get into the fact that you mostly do music theater, but you also do songwriting. When was that a starting point for you? Like, when was that a thing?
I feel like I always had that creative side of me, but it wasn't until I moved here that I really started exploring it, because I was going to audition after audition and like all that rejection starts to get to you, and I was like, oh, I still want to be creative, so how can I be creative in a way that won't cost me money and that I can just like do it for me? And my roommate at the time is now a part of like a songwriting duo, so she was going through the same sort of growing pains, so she started writing, so it inspired me to start writing. And she's amazing. Her name's Carly. She's now part of Kismet out in LA. Little plug for my friend.
Shameless plug.
She's amazing. But yeah, and it was sort of like emotional therapy and just a way for me to like, and essentially throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, and just like have something that's just for me, that I didn't have to show anyone, that wasn't to prove something or to get a job. It was just like to create.
So was it something that you did like in high school as well at all? Did you ever dabble as like a kid with writing?
I hung out with people that wrote music in high school, but I never felt like I was allowed to or didn't give myself permission to do that. But I was always inspired by people who had been writing.
I had a very similar experience where so people who listen to this podcast know that I do it with my brother. He usually does most of the talking, but he is gone for this one. He was really interested in songwriting in high school and was very good at it and was like well known for being good at it. And I was like 3 or 4 years younger than him, and it didn't click with me as well right off the bat. A, I was much younger. B, and he was so like well known for it that I was like, I'm not gonna like even give this a remote shot. And anything that I kind of tried was like, wah, wah, like when you're trying to write songs when you're 13 and it's like, I have nothing to say. And then so it wasn't even until like I was probably 21 or 22 that I was like, I think I've got some stuff to say. I think I'm pretty good at this. Yeah. And then it like it definitely grew from there. How old did you say you were when you kind of like started like really diving into it?
When I really dove in, I suppose like 22. Because I was 21 when I moved here, and then within that first year I sort of started writing, and then I started to enjoy it and started to do it more and felt like I liked what I was doing. Like I liked my music, which was the first, because like if I'd ever done anything before or like dabbled in it, like I was like, this isn't good, I'm not good. You know, you go through that whole like, I've spent so many years developing good taste in music. And then I started writing my own, and then it just takes a while for your work to catch up to your taste, if that makes sense.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I think that, well, first of all, we'll get back into this, but first of all, for people that don't know who you are, we'll give a little introduction for you. By the way, this is the first version of this where we changed our name, just so you know. because it was Boston Music Explorer, and now for a wide variety of reasons, we're expanding that vastly to Indie Music Explorer.
Hey.
So we are talking to independent musicians of all different varieties, and we are starting off with a music theater extraordinaire, which I would say is fair to say that music theater. No, don't laugh at that. That's legit. But I would say that music theater performers are independent artists in their own right. But give a little introduction as to who you are and what's your elevator pitch for yourself.
Well, 90 seconds, go. Okay, I'm Kim. I'm from St. Louis. I studied musical theater in college, and I was always a dancer growing up. And because I have a long, sustained back problem, I probably can't dance forever. So I'm starting to write music and want to explore that avenue as well.
There you go. Boom. And so you're recently, as for something that people would connect with you on, you were recently on you played a large role in the national tour of A Chorus Line, the musical. Talk a little bit, because I've talked to a few people who have done national tours, and I know that in talking with them that there's a lot of, trials and tribulations that go along with the national tour. But aside from that, like, what did it mean for you to be playing such a large role in such a historic show that everyone knows on a huge scale?
Wow. A Chorus Line is a huge show for me. I grew up as a dancer, and I grew up learning about the show and watching the movie, and then watching the documentary about the revival that happened, and just never thought that I would be a good enough dancer to do it. I don't know why I didn't believe in myself until I grew up. Who knows?
Who knows? Somebody to talk to a therapist about.
But I sort of kept dancing and kept working at it, and then they were having auditions for the tour, and I just decided to go because I learned the opening combination. So you already know it going in, but you might as well, you have to go, Is
that essentially at every Chorus Line audition, is that going to be the dance call?
That's it, yeah.
That's amazing. Because I feel like the most stressful thing for me, granted, for people that don't know, I did theater for a long time, and I am a I would say avid non-dancer, and the most stressful thing is the intensity of a dance call, of learning a dance call. Oh my, that is my personal version of hell for sure.
Yeah.
So the fact that you could be I know it, let's just do it,
right,
is a huge step up.
And I get there and I realized, oh my God, By Your Leave is setting this tour, and By Your Leave is the original Connie in the Broadway production, and she was involved in the revival on Broadway, and she is one of the people you see in the movie Every Little Step, the documentary about the casting of the revival. And I tried not to think about the fact that that's who that was teaching us the combo, and just try to get through it, because she made it. I think we did it for an hour straight. She was teaching it, and we were doing it again and again and again and again and again, to the point where you think you're going to vomit because you cannot 5, 6, 7, 8 one more time. So that was crazy. So when I finally got cast in the role of Maggie, I always wanted to do a chorus line with the original choreography and the original staging, because for me, I personally don't think there is any other version that works. I think it's just, it is what you cannot take away the choreography is to take away the show, because the whole show is choreographed. Every movement, every cross, all the acting is all choreographed. So that's the vision. So to step in and be a part of that legacy was so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
How long was the tour?
About 6 months.
6 months. And was it full equity?
No, completely non-equity.
Okay.
Completely non-equity, yeah. But it was incredible. We had the same directing team, music supervisor that did the Broadway revival, and that are doing the New York City Encore's production that started rehearsals today.
Right. Well, talk about, for people that don't know and for people that do listen who are more music theater inclined, talk about your experience with dealing with the whole equity, non-equity situation. And, well, first of all, explain what that means for people that don't know what that means.
So to be equity, it refers to Actors Equity Association, which is the union for actors. So if you are, quote, equity, that means you are a paid member of the actors union. So if you're non-equity, it doesn't mean you're any less talented. It doesn't mean that you aren't an actor. It just means you haven't yet achieved equity status, and to gain it you have to earn 50 weeks of work. Well, I guess now they've changed the rules, so maybe 25 now. 25 weeks of work through an equity house, or you have to be offered an actor's equity contract. But every Broadway house is equity. But there's a lot of work for both avenues, but that particular tour was non-equity.
I should mention that we are in the middle of a somewhat crowded restaurant, so apologies to everyone for the sound. Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, of course.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you very much.
Some more coffee?
Yes, please. Yeah. Thank you so much. So excuses for the clanging and banging and intermittently talking to servers, but it's going to happen. So you have been in New York for how long now?
I've been here for 5 years. So if you're listening and you're doing the math, I have dated myself, but that's okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Which means I'm a real New Yorker now.
That is 5 years the threshold?
I feel like
you made it.
We've made it.
What do you, for someone who is coming out for the very first time, regardless of your musical interests, say whether you're in a band or an artist or you're doing theater, what are some pieces of advice that you have for people that are thinking about moving or maybe just got here?
What a great question. Make sure you know how to budget.
Right. Huge.
I know people always say save up money before you move, and I would definitely agree with that. I had some money saved before I moved as well. But more than that, just learning how to budget not just your money but your time as well, and make sure to take time for yourself, because I feel like whenever I'm in the city and I'm in between gigs or whatnot, I'm working all the time to pay my rent, and then spending the time I'm not working, taking class or hanging out with a friend, and I try to make sure to have at least one day where I don't have any obligations.
Right.
Just for your mental health and your sanity.
Yeah.
But
that's huge.
It's all just sort of balancing act.
How have you managed to deal with rejection when that comes up? And I know that I don't necessarily know everything about your career or what your audition success has been like, but how have you dealt with that?
I have a lot of good friends that build me up on my bad days and support me on the good ones, and that's honestly the most important thing. And I think as well, making sure with each audition that it's something I really want to be doing, and that's as much as you can do, really.
Right.
I mean, it can eat you alive. But I've also learned through experience that there is room for everyone in this business. Just because you're in final callbacks with one girl that you're really intimidated by doesn't mean you're not going to get the job. There's a job for everyone. I remember being in final callbacks for the show in Denver that I did a couple years ago at the Arvada Center, and she actually played Maggie on the last national tour of a chorus line that went out in 2012. And I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I know who she is, I'm really nervous, she's probably gonna get the job. But then I ended up getting that job, and then she got another job. There's always work to be had, so just because you don't get this one doesn't mean there's not gonna be something else coming up.
Right.
It just wasn't the right gig for you at that time.
I think that's important, and I thought about this today, where it is the difference between people who are artists and people who are music theater people is that artists have the luxury of being able to survive in niches, where if you are someone who is exclusively into Northern London grunge revival music, there is a market for that, because there's always going to be pockets of people, and with the luxury of the internet, there's always going to be people who find your stuff if you do a good job of finding those people. And I think that is slightly different for music theater people, where there is no niche theater. I mean, there is, but there's not a way to survive on it.
Right.
And so there kind of only is one path to success for theater people, and that is just doing the work and competing, which I think is good in a certain way. It's kind of limiting, but it's, I'm sure, equally horrifying because you're going up against 50 different women who look like you and sound like you, which is, I'm sure, heartbreaking.
But half the work is just showing up and believing that you and what you bring to the table, even though you may look and sound like someone next to you or 300 people next to you, it doesn't mean you all bring the same thing to the table. We all have a different spirit, a different energy, a different life experience that affects what you bring into the room, honestly. So you can't knock yourself because you feel like, oh, there's 100 girls just like me. Why would they hire me? No, why would they not hire me? Because I'm amazing, and I think that's like sort of a pep talk I like to give myself.
Oh, totally, yeah.
When going into the room and just knowing that, like, I have something that nobody else has just because of who I am and my past and everything that I've done that have led me to this point. And I have to believe that, like, somewhere along the line, someone's going to believe in that, and certain people have before, so it will happen again, you know.
And for people that are listening that have no interest in music theater whatsoever, I think that really, that applies to anything, especially with music. I think that something that I struggled with when I started writing is that I wanted to find like a super unique voice that I could say was my own, but at the same time, I have like 15 different people in the back of my head who I imagine like listening to these songs, and I'm like, oh man, what would this guy think? He's gonna think that this is played out, or this is like derivative, and this is these chord progressions aren't unique enough. And I think that as a musician and a songwriter, you have to believe in a certain extent that your voice matters, and that you, especially if you go out and listen to people, like, you will see something that reminds you that you do have talent. You'll be like, dude, I can do what these people are doing, like, easily. And so I think that as a musician, you constantly have to remind yourself in a certain way that your voice, like, you do have a voice and like you have something unique to offer. How have you prioritized your interests in terms of songwriting versus theater, and how has that changed in like recent years?
I'm not that great at prioritizing it. It was really hard, actually. I felt like I was coming a long way with my songwriting last year, and like put out my first music video and wanted to like take my own writing more seriously, and wanted to do a concert last year. And then before I got a chance to do that, I found out I was going to do White Christmas in Maine for the holidays. So I sort of had to like pack up and go, and I didn't have room to take my guitar with me. And then you're tap dancing all the time, and it's a full-time job, so I just didn't get to write. And then on the tour bus, I didn't have my guitar then either. So it feels like almost a year that I've been away from my songwriting, but it's always there. There's a lot of inspiration. I just have to get back to it. But that's the thing about it for me, is I was never trying to make it a second career. I wanted it to be like something that I enjoyed doing, that was just for me, and if I get to share it, great. And I do want to like share it with the world and like do a concert in the future. But it always seems like that future is always like push back, because I'll do like a theater show and then it gets like put on the back burner. But I do want to commit more to it.
Like at the end of the day, music theater feels like you're number one.
Yeah, and with the way that musical theater is going too, there are so many shows out there, like the Hades Towns of the world, or the Spring Awakening that's happened, or with August Rush coming up, where people play instruments. Like that kind of folk style is coming to Broadway. So who's to say that this skill won't be a reward in the end, and then I'll get to combine my two loves, and everything will be amazing. So you never know what the future holds, but I believe that could happen.
Yeah.
You know?
And there are plenty of shows that involve guitar playing. Does the girl in Once play guitar in that show? Or is it the guy?
She plays piano.
Right.
The guy plays guitar, and I think in a couple productions I've seen, they've sort of gender bended, and some girls play guitar and whatnot, but for the most part, there are not a lot of roles that have women playing guitar, because it's such a large and more viewed as a masculine instrument, which
is unfortunate for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I think it's a little sexist, but it kind of is what it is.
In terms of where, like, how have you found yourself defining success, and where do you hope to see yourself soon?
Well, I have learned that every person defines success for themselves. So for so long, I thought like, oh, I'll only be successful if I get into this musical theater program, or I'll only be successful if I get a Broadway show. Like that will define success for me. And if I keep thinking of success in that way, I'm never going to achieve anything, because as soon as I get something that is incredible, I'll never appreciate it because it's not what I thought success was in my brain. So I think that's something I've learned as I've like grown older and matured and been working more in the business, and realizing that like each experience has shaped me in a way that's like better than what I would have imagined if I had just gotten what I imagined success was. So I have to just remember that like I'm a working actor in the city, and I'm not constantly working all the time, but I am a working actor, and I've been that for at least 3 years, like on and off. Like I've done a lot of shows, which is amazing. So now that I've joined the Actors Union, I'm finally an equity member, and I can start going to more auditions. Like hopefully I can get another national tour that will be under Actors Equity, that will like pay me a little bit better, and like will have benefits, and I can be like have a nicer schedule and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
But also just want to write more, because I think that makes me happy. And isn't that the whole point of it all?
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, on like a slightly lighter note, as we somewhat wrap things up, in terms of listening to music, do you have any top guilty pleasures that you find yourself going back to recently? And there's nothing too guilty, because I can't even describe how much One Direction is on my iPhone, so don't be shy.
Guilty pleasure? I would have to... I'm literally pulling up my Spotify, because apparently I can't remember anything.
I'm trying to think what my... there's a couple 1D songs that I'm all about.
Okay, like, if we want to talk about guilty pleasures, then I will tell you, every once in a while, I have to go back and listen to the Next to Normal soundtrack.
Next to Normal? Yeah, that's fair.
It's so good.
That's fair enough.
It's so good. And it's... Yeah. Or, like, I saw the band's Visit last year on Broadway, and I'm still thinking about that show, and that soundtrack is so good. Like, every once in a while, I just get a craving to listen to a Broadway soundtrack, and it feels so nerdy, and I try and, like, hide my phone in my pocket, like, no, I'm not listening to Dear Evan Hansen right now. No, I'm not singing along in my head.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So, yeah, I guess that's my guilty pleasures, but for the most part, it's, like, a lot of Leanne the Havas and Amos Lee, and a lot of, like, fall guitar vibes.
Fall Guitar Vibes is a new album coming your way soon via me. All right, well, for people who want to see what you're up to, is there any shameless plugs you have? Where can people find you? Where can they find your music?
If we go to kimmcclay.com, SKIM-MCCLAY.com, I have a page on there, a tab for my original music. I've posted my 2 songs that I've made videos of, if anyone cares to listen. But they're 2 of my favorites, and I'm very proud of them. And I was happy to share them. So go take a listen, and hopefully there's more where that came from.
Beautiful. All right.
Stay tuned.
Thanks very much.
That's it for now. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy what you hear, please consider subscribing, rating, and leaving a review. If you want to learn more about what we're up to, you can go to thebartonbros.com and find us at The Barton Brothers on Instagram and Facebook. We will see you next time.